I forgot to do an actual introduction because I was distracted. Alright, so this time around I am going to try and see if I can find the new items from that payday update. If nothing really interesting happens on the first floor, I might skip all the way to the item rooms so that you don't have to sit through all the basic combat. First item room. I don't think that's so bad if that being dampened by the fact that I have to give up my ammo drop for this spacebar item. I don't think it's so bad because the knives from Knife Shield in fact deal a fair amount of damage. Unfortunately, that was not a good use of this item. Let me see if I can better demonstrate that in some other cases. On the downside of having Knife Shield, it does carry one level of curse, so being a recorded run, it probably means that the curse would actually have more impact than usual. On the positive side of having one level of curse, the curse does make it so that enemies drop more money for you, and finding the sling from the other chest is extremely good because this item deals massive damage to bosses. That's not what I should be using it for. As you can see, the Knife Shield hit that enemy once, and then another bullet was enough to finish it off. If I'm not mistaken, that means Knife Shield deals 35 damage. Although the wiki says that it's actually just 30, it might be the case that I hit that blue shotgun enemy with a stray bullet before I hit it with my knives. If I'm going to find any excuse for why I might be playing badly today, it would be the fact that my fingers are feeling a little frozen from the cold weather. Since I'm going to say this in a moment anyways, I might as well do it now. There is this common theme in Enter the Gungeon, that is, the game is deliberately designed so as to hold players back from having an incredibly good run. One of the most manifest ways in which this is true is the fact that all the bosses in the game has a damage per second shield, which means that if you have an incredibly powerful setup that can deliver high damage in a short time, the game would actually physically prevent you from doing so, at least against bosses. For example, what I did there, I hit the boss with a good number of my knife shield projectiles. However, the game in that moment probably made it so that the knives are not doing as much damage as they possibly can. Due to the DPS shield of the bosses. That might be a necessary thing for the balancing of the game, but it makes it so that a good run that should be extremely powerful doesn't feel as satisfying as the player might expect it to be. Other things such as the game's mechanism with spawning high quality chests has a similar problem with it. The game actively prevents you from having too many good items on a single run, with some exception, which only makes things more confusing because if it is in fact mechanically possible for the game to give you many high quality items in a single run, why does it not do so on a regular basis? Why does it have to happen with exceptional items? That breaks the rule. In case you don't know what I'm referencing, the chests that are spawned in this game have quality ratings from D tier to S tier. And there is a mechanism in the game which prevents you from having too many A tier or S tier chests from spawning. However, this mechanism can be negated if you have a item called the 7-leafed clover. Compared to another game such as The Binding of Isaac, which I feel like is the rival of this game in some sense. The Binding of Isaac allows you to stack up essentially unlimited number of high quality items on a single run. So it is possible in that game to have runs that are so incredibly powerful that it's actually impossible to lose except for deliberate player actions. I'm not sure if that makes the game better or worse. By the way, I am aware of the fact that the demon head weapon is sometimes having trouble displaying its laser beam properly. I guess all of this just boils down to different decisions the developers made about how they want a average run to be. It might be the case that with something like The Binding of Isaac, the game can devolve into a purely luck-based experience, with certain runs being very much above average, and some other runs being so mediocre that you would feel impelled to just start over. However, I don't think things like the DPS shield of bosses in this game are something that helps with the balancing of the game. I think that is just a little too much, since it's already extremely rare to have runs in Enter the Gungeon that you can just steamroll. on different games, for example, for example, a game like Dark Souls, it might be thematically appropriate to limit the damage per second on bosses so as to ensure that each boss has enough screen time to be relevant to the story of the game. Ironically, Dark Souls in fact does not have a boss DPS shield system, at least not as far as I am aware of. By the way, I'm going to fight the boss right away. It's the snake. However, for a game like Enter the Gungeon, since it's supposed to be a highly replayable game, all the bosses will inevitably reappear over different runs. In that case, it really doesn't make sense that there should be a DPS shield system. Also, in case you haven't noticed, this boss is incredibly difficult to deal with, at least for me. I am 1 millimeter from being hit by a bullet in the end there. That was incredible. And I'm going to check this locked door here to see if it's a merchant. I can't be sure, it might be an NPC, so probably spent my key here. Oh, this is interesting. Gilded bullet, so it makes it so that your damage scales with your money, in which case it is probably sensible for me to sell one of my weapons. I'm going to sell this one, since it fulfills a similar role to Demon Head, and the item I just sold has a troublingly strong pushback, or should I say recoil, so I think this is for the best. That was so terrible. Thankfully, I was not punished for it. Let's see who this character might be. Interesting. Probably more useful if I had more HP. I knew that thing was going to split, but I still couldn't help myself from using the knife attack. I do like the golden laser beam from Demon Head though, at least when it is actually visible. On hindsight, I should have destroyed the chest from last floor that I couldn't open, in the hopes of getting something useful. Even a half-heart could have helped. I also noticed that, aside from my fingers that are frozen, so is my voice. Or maybe I am only nervous. That was close. If I'm going to offer more criticism on Enter the Gungeon, the other problem is that some of the items in this game are misrated, I think. So that was terrible, by the way. There are certain items who really don't deserve the tier rating they get. For example, there is this item called Armor Synthesizer, which generates armor, which has a chance to grant you 1 additional level of armor whenever you finish a room. However, the probability of that happening is so low that it is often outclassed by something like Gun Knight Helm, which is an item that always grants you 1 additional level of armor in the beginning of each floor. That item, the Gun Knight Helm and its counterparts, is let me deal with this first. Suffice to say that the Armor Synthesizer, being an A tier, is really not as good as something as good rated a B tier. And this weapon is one of those weapons that would actually ignore the DPS shield of bosses. In that case, it comes to question, if it's possible to break the rules of this game, why have them in the first place? I think I'm going to open this one. It's Cursed Bullet. I'm going to buy it even though I have had repeated experiences where curse in this game would screw me over. Of course, we will be fighting who is arguably the most intelligent enemy in the whole game, but having the ability to ignore boss DPS shield made this fight a complete breeze. I am happy for that. I'm going to destroy this chest. And recover 1 HP. While you were away, the game actually crashed and I had to restart it, but thankfully my progress was saved. So I guess the game really wasn't happy about me killing the most intelligent boss in the game in something like 2 seconds. Also, given the Gilded Bullet and Cursed Bullet, my basic pistol damage is actually competent enough for this late game fights. I will also, as a result, be using Knife Shield more defensively. We spent 60 missiles from this weapon to kill the last boss. It should be enough for this one, but just in case I'm going to reload that one that weapon and try and sustain myself using basic pistol, at least for the time being. This enemy still, I think they can taste the hellfire. Sorry, did I say hellfire? I meant heckfire, because this is a Christian channel, you see. That joke is probably pretty stale. And by the way, despite any evidence that might point to that direction, I am not in fact religious. These are tempting, but I don't think it's worth sacrificing my money for, because in this case my money also correlates to my damage. Although this game is cheap enough. Oh. I thought I was going to have the most incredible shot. Guess not. Hopefully it's something that I have been looking for. No. Only a good but not that good of a weapon. I shouldn't say it's not that good, just that in this situation it's not necessary. I already have a extremely powerful weapon against bosses. And right now I don't feel any pressure to use anything too powerful for regular rooms, even though this room is making a good argument otherwise. Just be patient here. I guess I'm convinced. On my own time, I was trying to practice my Enter the Gungeon skills by playing as the robot and turning on 9 levels of curse, then not picking up any weapons, or any items for that matter. The result so far is that it doesn't seem to help with my skills, because I always die on the same level. Okay, this room might require a little more firepower to deal with. Probably not a good policy to use a more powerful weapon after I have already taken damage on a room. I do find things like that to be interesting in this game. In case you don't know, there is this item. I think I can do this challenge, by the way. There is this item in Enter the Gungeon called Glass Guangstone. What it is basically a defensive orbital that destroys enemy projectiles that comes in contact with it. So it's kind of a shield that you can use to block enemy attacks. However, the catch with this item is that if you get hit while equipping glass Guangstones, all the glass Guangstones will be destroyed in the process. So it's kind of like, it helps you protect yourself, but if you fail to protect yourself, it ceases to be any help. I'm not sure if this is game theory or not, but I just think it's very interesting. There is really nothing of value in the shop here. I don't know why I went in that direction, anticipating something useful. This enemy deserves some demon head. I missed with my knife shots, I think. Or maybe it connected, only it doesn't do enough damage compared to my base pistol now, since the knives don't appear to benefit from gilded bullet or cursed bullet. Easy enough. This item does not deserve a B tier rating. It's essentially just a normal Guangstone. Let me show you its effect. Slows time upon receiving damage, and a bunch of flavor text. So what it does is that when you take damage, it very slightly slows down the rate at which the game runs. However, I always find this effect to actually hinder my ability to play the game rather than helping. Also, I took damage there, and I'm not sure if you noticed, but I sure as hell didn't notice any time slowing down. Okay, let's make short work of this thing. I still took damage. That was unacceptable. And another Guangstone that is also B tier and also does not deserve its rating. I am very displeased that I do not have a flawless display. Let's see what's here. These are really not good enough. I don't think it's worth the sacrifice of damage. I am going to buy this item just for the health upgrade. And seeing how terribly I have been playing lately, I guess it's time to be using the more powerful weapons. Let's see. That was my own slow reflex. I did not anticipate that enemy's survival. Just wanted to make sure I know which direction I should be going. I'm just frantically shooting around because I don't want this enemy to spawn its minion. Unfortunately, that is too late, and looks like this thing is going to revive. Thankfully not. Really glad that I have purchased more HP. I'm going to open this cursed chest, if for no other reason than to acquire a 3.5 level increase of my curse in order to deal more damage. And I do love the fact that most explosive weapons in this game will not damage the user. Although I should be more judicious with the way I aim them. Sorry for being quiet. Unless of course you prefer the silence rather than my nonsensical talking. Uh-oh. A jammed version of the skeleton enemy, who is, by the time that I mention it, dead. I am aware of the fact that I cannot properly pronounce the word dead. It's the syllable, the vowel in there that I cannot properly pronounce. I cannot properly distinguish that from the other vowel that is very similar. I don't think I will be buying any of that. Knife shield saved me big time there. I am somewhat tempted to just go right away and fight the dragon because I have yet to win on camera. But I think the dragon is just going to go down with this incredible weapon, so I'm not worried about that. However, if I do start to take severe damage from room exploration, I will be going to the fight. To the dragon fight. That is another example of how Enter the Gungeon kind of intentionally prevents you from taking advantage of the game while not really doing so. So that skeleton enemy, who is in fact rather difficult to deal with, is immune to falling into pits, where most enemies in this game will just instantly die if you manage to push them into one of those pits that you see in the other room. It gives me the impression that the game is actively trying to make it so that you cannot easily deal with its more difficult enemies, to a point where it feels artificial and contrived. The other example would be the item known as... By the way, I can't even open any of these chests, so I don't know why I am seeking them out. Anyways, there is this other item called Explosive Companion App, which is an item that causes any explosive object in the room to explode when you press the spacebar. This also applies to enemies who are inherently explosive, such as the grenade enemies in the early floors and as well as in some later floors. However, this does not work on the more difficult enemies such as lead maidens. Even though lead maidens are inherently explosive, that item cannot cause them to explode. It feels as though the game is actively neutering your ability to deal with difficult enemies where by the rules it had already said you should be able to. It might be something similar to the boss DPS shield, where the game wants you to experience the difficult enemies more as intended. So the game wants you to know how difficult those troubling enemies are. But the way they did so is not really a well-designed choice, in my opinion. Since those difficult enemies and bosses show up all the time in this replayable game, it doesn't really make sense why on the few occasions you feel like you would have a strong advantage over them, you end up not being able to exploit that advantage. I don't think I need any other assistance for this fight. Might be a foolish thing to think. And I do sincerely hope that I have saved a couple blanks for this. Looks like it's going to be a somewhat easy victory this time around. And that would be in fact the first victory I have on camera. Okay. I will be going to the bullet hell after this because for a run as powerful as this, I feel like that is my obligation to do so. We will also destroy that skull just to show dominance. And see if we need anything here. I don't think any of these items are worth the damage downgrade to purchase, although it is somewhat tempting. It probably doesn't matter in the long run, if I'm being honest with myself, given the very much overpowered run that I have going on right now, despite everything I said before, trying to make the run sound like it's worse than it really is. And I think Demon Head has exhausted its usefulness. That is not really significant in this situation. Okay. I do like the music in this area. It reminds me of rain somehow. Okay. There is a good chance that I will, in fact, die before I reach the boss of this floor. Even if so, this run is still a very good one. Although I am beginning to question my choice of scattered bullets, as well as my decision to deliberately increase my level of curse, despite the knowledge that the curse level seems to be especially punishing on runs for which I record videos. This enemy has to be killed. Unfortunately, the game is beginning to run a bit more slowly than usual, so that may not be great for video recording. In case you didn't know, the curse level in this game also make it so that consumable items such as ammunition and hearts are less likely to drop. Which means it is not only out of stinginess that I am trying to preserve my ammunition by using my basic pistol, it's also because it is not unthinkable that my main weapons, this one, would run out of ammunition before I reach the boss. I am also not really practicing intelligent navigation on this level, because I am too much into the habit of exploring every single room, trying to find beneficial items from exploration. However, for this particular level, there is really no point in doing so, since there can't be any chests. Might be considered cowardly to hide behind corners, but this is hell after all. There is an ammunition supply. Shows what I know when I said that there won't be any ammunition drop. I guess this time around the game is actively trying to prove me wrong for criticizing it being stingy. Oh. it doesn't appear that the game is holding back on the enemy spawn there. I do not like the idea of using all my blanks. However, it does seem to be the right thing to do in this situation. I should also probably be using my knife shield way more. It would be really awkward to go so far only to lose to the bullet hell. If I had taken the trophy after the dragon fight, I could mark this video as a success. Whereas if I died in bullet hell, maybe I wouldn't be justified to do so. But really that is not something that I really need to worry about. Since victory is really just a hollow and ridiculous notion. I could have said that quote better, but whatever. The point is that I made it further than I ever did on camera, so that's good. This room could be my death. Knife shield is really helpful here. And I have a good feeling that I am in fact going in the correct direction. Never mind. I was going to say judging by the fact that the room hasn't reached a dead end yet. However, clearly that is not the case. I'm happy to have killed that enemy before it summoned a much more dangerous minion. Let's try this direction instead. I should not have stuck myself in the doorway there. Very foolish thing to do. I can't believe it is fire that ended my life. Well, a fitting end for a death in hell. If death in hell is really something that can be achieved. Well, thank you for watching and goodbye.